I read everything from The Nation to The American Conservative. I was going to say I read them religiously, but maybe that's a loaded statement. And I would say, one of the best things to do is to always serve those who are less fortunate than yourself, regardless of where they come from. I think it builds a really deep sense of awareness of where people are at, and it helps heal a lot of issues and problems. And that's something I say for myself first and foremost, but I think generally it's good advice.
Thank you. In opening up this floor, I'd like to come back to this young woman up here who had a question earlier that I asked for her to hold off to the end. Has that question been answered?
I think so.
Okay.
I think I would just redirect. If the polls, by the way, I'm Jackie, I'm an EMBA grad student here. I would just say, do you anticipate a way forward? And do you see it coming out of an extreme position, or do you see, as these discussions are pretty evidenced here, that I think across the board things have become more moderate and things have become less shouting match and more let's have a discussion about it. So do you see a way forward? Will these polls inevitably change? I mean, post our November election here, or whenever the next Gallup poll comes out? What's the next step?
I mean, I'm an optimist about America. If you just look at our history, there have been times when so many other racial or religious or ethnic groups have been subjected to discrimination or worse. And I think despite the ugliness of a lot of the rhetoric in this election and a lot of the hurt and anger that we're hearing, that we can get past this. I think it's just going to take a lot more work.
Get past this being the sort of moment of tension is that
right? I mean, I think, is there a way forward?
Right.
Where it's not so polarized.
Right. Gee, I don't know. I think the tension's with us for a while. Frankly, I agree. Yeah, ultimately, sure, we've been through far worse than this. Arguing over mosques here and there, things of that nature. It's not will not impact the nature of the country. I mean, as I said, statistics just don't bear out any overwhelming wave of victimization toward Muslims. It just doesn't happen. Jews are the victims of hate crimes more than Muslims, and in this country, and I would never dream of calling Jews victims of hate crimes in America. So it's not, look, these things sell papers. Part of what has I think made the debate about Part 51 particularly toxic is that there are reasonable ways to object to the mosque. There are people who object on reasonable grounds, but they're far less colorful and less interesting. They're boring, like me. So, so they didn't get on TV.
I would actually just say, I would go to your use of the term moderate. That's my bad word of the day. I would say, I think that sometimes we have a rosier picture of how our country has worked in the past. We've always had pretty intense debates. Things are actually pretty chill right now, all things considered. Things are pretty good right now, if you look at the big picture. I think that, it's not a bad thing to have really strong opinions on different sides. I think that's a good thing. What I think is a bad thing is the fact that the way our media is now structured, it doesn't give time for actual debate or discussion. You can have strong opinions, go ahead and have strong opinions, but create the format for people to actually have that discussion and be willing to defend their opinions and really engage their ideas. So people don't really have those discussions anymore, at least in a medium that a lot of people read. I think major media in general hasn't really done a good job in that department. I think moving forward, though, I think we would do well to demonstrate more curiosity and interest and attempt to question a lot of assumptions that are out there. Just as an idea, as an example, America is the only country in the West where a significant portion of the indigenous population converted to Islam. I mean, African Americans, right? Something like 50% of Muslims in this country are black. Right, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hamza Abdullah is on Vikings right now. I mean, there's a lot of people who are very prominent from the 50s and the 60s, Elijah Muhammad, a lot of thinkers, poets who are Muslim, but their voices aren't heard. And I think that's very deliberate because it's a lot easier to have intemperate arguments and make silly points if you're talking to someone who can be easily labeled foreign. And I think that this is both a failure of a lot of Muslim institutions that haven't put up voices that are a lot more interesting and worthwhile to hear. And just, as a final point, there are 2 Muslims in Congress, right? And both of them are African American. They're named Keith and Andre, right? I mean, that's who they are, right? Why isn't anyone talking about them? Why are we expecting, someone who has a small constituency to represent Islam, and not someone, not to represent Islam, but to represent Muslims as Americans, someone who's actually elected to office? I mean, isn't that a more representative story of where Muslims are in this country? And, I think as a last point, something to really underline is that Muslims do face a lot of problems in this country, both by virtue of being Muslim and racially. It's not easy to be African American. It's not easy to be in certain categories. You face a lot of challenges in your life. But at the same time, Muslims in this country probably do better than in most any other country in the world. Educational achievement is pretty high. Opportunities are really high. And that's why, this is a final point, I think what's so interesting about what we're facing right now is we're facing a lot of misunderstanding combined with actual achievement, because this environment is in a post-civil rights environment, right? So you simultaneously have a lot of negative opinions of Muslims, and you have a lot of Muslims who are making a lot of money, who have advanced degrees, who are in positions of influence or power. So it's a really mixed bag, and it's a really hard situation to pin down. And I think that speaks especially to New York, which has the largest Muslim population. I'm not going to scare everyone in the room, right? Has the largest Muslim population of any city, I think, in the Western Hemisphere. There's about 1 million, maybe 800,000, maybe 1 million Muslims in New York City. It's a huge, incredibly diverse population. And we're focusing on one instance, and we're not looking at the bigger picture. And I'm not saying this panel, I'm saying just in terms of the general media narrative. And I think that's a step in going towards a more positive form of engagement.
Thank you. Are there any other questions that you would like any or all of these panelists to entertain?
My question is to Abe.
Zora, could you introduce yourself?
I'm Zora Shamar, I'm a professor here. I think I could speak that. First of all, I think you are more against this imam than against the mosque, because most of your comments were, because this imam is so-and-so, because this imam said such a thing. If there were another imam, would you agree to have this Islamic center to be built there?
Sure, depending on the imam, yeah, absolutely. Look, the building without him is just a building. The project is the people behind it.
And then can you comment on a couple of other things you said? One was there is something wrong with Islam.
I didn't say that. I said there's something wrong with the Islamic leadership in this country.
Or the mosque is the center of the terrorist organization. Do you think
I don't think I said anything like that. Did I say that?
I don't know. Maybe I was writing some of your comments.
Did I say that?
Yeah. Maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe that's what I heard it wrong. And you went to Iran for a while.
Iraq.
No,
discussions. Yeah.
Khomeini,
Islamism. Yeah.
Can you explain it a little bit to me? I never.
Oh, yeah.
I'm an Iranian.
Sure.
I know what Khomeini did.
Sure.
What do you mean by Khomeini?
Absolutely. Rauf, if it seems like I'm obsessed with him, then so be it. But 2 statements. In the 70s, when the revolution first happened, in a letter to the New York Times, he called on American leadership to apologize for its past sins against Iran and to respect Khomeini and guardianship of the jurist, which is as many people here know much better than me, the sort of little totalitarian embellishment that Khomeini put on Shia Islam. Allowing him to turn Iran into a very nasty extremist police state. Then, in June of last year, after the June 12th election in Iran, which was by any respectable account rigged to re-elect Ahmadinejad,